run colder. I lead it, Persian, Steve, and Mystic. Whole squad locked in, we go ballistic. Game time grind, it's a takeover. Whistle get blown, we break the quota. From the first hot take to the closer. It's our season now. Move over. Clock hit zero, that's pre-show pressure. 3 deep crew, that full court measure. I lead a Persian, flame on the mic, breaking down plays like he called that hike. Steve with the stats, the ice in the vein. Sees every route, every yard, every lane. Mystic calling future, seeing through smoke. Predictions hit hard like a safety stroke. Game time grind, it's a takeover. Run, let's go up, lights run colder. I lead the Persian, Steve, and Mystic. Whole squad locked in, we go ballistic. Game time grind, it's a takeover. Whistle get blown, we break the quota. From the first hot take to the closer. This our season now. Move over. Line 'em up. Who on heat? Who on heat? Saturday legends on the midweek scene. Who on heat? Kick off, talk till the sun goes down. New kings here, that's a title bout. Game time grind, it's a takeover. Run, let's go up, lights run colder. I lead the Persian, Steve, and Mystic. Whole squad locked in, we go ballistic. Game time grind, it's a takeover. Whistle get blown, we break the quota. Game time grind, say the name louder. This our season now. Full power.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a brand new episode here on 4th and 10. I am your host, Ali the Persian. I got my boy Steve next to me. How's it going, Steve? How's everything been?
And doing good. Another great day. Ready to get this started.
That's true. Every day is a new day, as I like to say. That kind of rhymed. Just realized that. Yeah, it was a great weekend. I had fun with family. Caught up on some shows. Did some hobbying that I did on Saturday. It was pretty good, fun stuff. We got a lot to talk about today. We're talking about the Big 12. That's right, the Big 12. We're gonna be talking about them. We're gonna break them down. If you're brand new to these parts, make sure you hit the like button. Come follow us at 4th and 10U. Follow us there. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you're brand new. I see quite a few people already, rolling in here. So join the chat. Shout out to you, Daniel Berry Sports. How you doing, sir? How's everything been? But yeah, definitely. Also, got something to say real quick. You're gonna want to definitely follow us at 4th and 10U on YouTube. Because starting this week, I want to say either Thursday or Friday, I'm not sure when it will come out, we're going to start putting exclusive content that you can only get at 4th and 10U on our channel, right? It's going to be pre-recorded episodes, talking about different teams. I'm going to tell you, we're probably going to talk a lot about the Miami Hurricanes. Yes, Hurricane fans, I am going to be talking about your team. Me and Steve are going to break you guys down, talk about what to look for, maybe talk about, your new quarterback a little bit more, what to expect, and some early projections, right? So we're going to be talking about that in that episode. So again, follow us at 4th and 10U on YouTube. Go there, and you can watch us there. If you're on the TFTG side, you won't be able to see it. You have to come to at 4th and 10U. I'm going to put it straight to publish once it's done recording and we've edited it. And you'll be able to watch it there. So Steve, what up, Lewis? How you doing? Bro, I'm going to send you the link. Come on through if you want. You're always in our chat, man. You're just as deserving to be on the show. I'm going to go ahead and send the link just to Lewis. If he wants to come through, he can. See if he has anything on his mind. Oh, gotta love technology. I'm going to send it to you on X, is where I'll send you the link, Lewis, just so you know. Go. There you go, Lewis. I just sent it to you if you want to come through. Anyways, a shout out to Lewis. If you guys ever want to watch some really good content, go to the Blitz Pickup. Check them out for your NFL and primarily Miami Dolphins content. They're putting out banger after banger, really good stuff. So shout out to them. So Steve, man, what's good? What's going on in the sporting world? I know we have an NBA championship now. Ended up being what? The Spurs versus the Knicks, right? It's kind of a lame duck NBA season, to be honest, for me. I don't know. We had a Clash at Italy that happened over the weekend. Tell me about that. Did you enjoy it? Were you happy, not happy? Tell me about it.
I mean, I thought it was good. Reviews aren't so great on it. Some of the things that happen are starting to settle in with me, like Brock beating
Obafemi?
Obafemi, thank you. The more I'm thinking about it, the more it makes sense going into probably a rematch at SummerSlam. So where they'll probably officially retire Brock Lesnar. So I thought it was a good show, personally.
If you're going to retire Brock Lesnar, it has to be at a big show like that. SummerSlam, definitely. It has to be a big one. Or even a WrestleMania. You know what I mean? I would have been okay with that.
That's where they originally did it. But there's speculation that WWE, when he signed to come back, he signed for a certain number of dates, and when he retired out of the blue in the middle of the ring, that was not going to happen. So apparently, I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's true or not, but supposedly TKO threatened to sue him over the money that they paid him because it was supposed to be for a number of dates. And I like those who don't know, like wrestling contracts are not like normal contracts. It's not like football where you agree to play for a certain number of years, right? Or college with NIL where you're with them for a certain amount of time through like seasons or whatever. With wrestling, it's generally a number of dates across a certain number of years. So it'd be like you have to play at least 25 games in the NFL across 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got you. It's more performances is what you're talking about in appearances. I get you.
Yes.
Very interesting. You know what I mean? That whole world is just it's very interesting in how it's set up and some of the things I hear about the wrestling industry and stuff. Maybe on a different episode we'll break the wrestling industry down and how today's sports have like connected with it in some way, because they're connected with the NFL, they're connected with college football and NBA and all the sports league in some way or fashion. So we'll definitely talk about it.
They always have. And a fun little fact, just because we're on the topic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would imagine even people who don't watch wrestling have heard of Ric Flair.
Oh yeah.
Do you know that one of the original from when we started the team is one of Ric Flair's biggest rivals?
Really? I didn't know that.
Wahoo McDaniel. He was a linebacker for the original Miami Dolphins team. When they invented the team, he was one of their linebackers, and he went into wrestling afterward and became one of the biggest wrestlers. Like, for people who know wrestling, they know who Wahoo McDaniel is.
Very interesting. All right, let's move on from the wrestling talk. Let's get into college sports. There was some big news today that got released. both the SEC and the Big Ten put out statements about the Protect College Sports Act, that they're getting ready to start having hearings and talking about it. It is, I believe, tomorrow actually is when it starts. But for people that don't know, the Protect College Sports Act of 2026 is a bipartisan bill introduced by the Senate by Ted Cruz and Maria Cantwell, along with Senators Eric Schmidt and Chris Coons. The legislation is designed to bring stability to college athletics by creating a national framework for NIL, name, image, and likeness, transfer rules, eligibility standards, athlete protections, and NCAA governance. The NCAA needs governance. They don't have any governance. It is really bad. They need, to be honest, in my opinion, outside of whatever you guys think, I think the NCAA needs to be abolished, and they need a new institution to really hold down the law. Because right now, if you don't know, with NIL, the transfer portal, with all the recruiting and the type of recruiting that teams are doing nowadays, it's the wild, wild west. That's exactly what it is right now. There's no law and order. But the major provisions is NIL regulation creates a single NIL standard and overrides current patchwork of state NIL laws, requires NIL deals to serve as a legitimate business purpose and be based on fair market value, gives NCAA and the proposed College Sports Commission authority to investigate and regulate NIL agreements. So it gives them the right to do that. Attempts to prevent booster collectives from functioning as a direct recruiting inducements, just so you know that. Also, transfer portal changes. Instead of having multiple transfer portals, they're looking to have you get one free transfer, and then if your college, if your head coach quits or gets fired or moves on, then you get another one. After that, I believe it's subject to approval. Is that correct, Steve? Do I have that right? That's what it's basically stating. Yeah, so it also includes anti-tampering provisions aimed at limiting poaching of players. Eligibility limits. This has been a big one over the past couple of seasons. You looked at the quarterback from Ole Miss who, I don't know, did he finally win? Is he able to play next season or not? The whole deal with Shambles. Yeah.
Shambles will be back.
And then you had, who was the other guy? The Sorsby, the guy who got in trouble for gambling. You know, and I just saw the other day, I was reading somewhere, a player got a 10-game suspension, technically for something that is a lot worse than the gambling suspension. You know what I mean? And he wasn't getting a 2-year or 1-year ban or whatever. It's just really, it's weird. It's very unbalanced when it comes to suspensions. But this establishes a 5-year eligibility cap, prevents former professional athletes who received compensation beyond prize money from competing in NCAA sports. I didn't even know they could still do that. Athlete protections. The bill also includes guaranteed scholarships, extended health and medical coverage, improved injury protections, and representation with governance structure of college athletics. I kind of like that. I think that should be given. And the Lane Kiffin rule. That's the running joke, right? Hey, I'm your head coach. You know what? I don't want to be your head coach right after we ended the season. Or I'm sorry, before the season is ended, and I'm going to go to a different team, right? Coaches would be prohibited from leaving another job before the end of their team's season. So Ole Miss, for example, they hadn't even finished the season. They got into the college football playoff, and their coach was already out the door. It was crazy. Intended to stop situations where coaches accept new jobs while their current team is preparing for bowl games in the college football playoff. I agree with that one. I think that one should be a given also. Revenue sharing and media rights. This is the big one where I think the Big Ten and the SEC is really going to fight, but basically, it's going to teams can vote on subsidizing revenue from bigger conference to smaller conferences. And that kind of, in my opinion, it kind of, what's that word I'm looking for, Steve? You're awarding teams for really just a participation award, just for being there. I think you should be awarded based on the product you put on the field and collectively what you do as a conference. That's where I'm at with it, but we'll talk more about that. But what it means to for college football: reduces transfer portal movement, puts stricter limits on NIL collectives, creates more uniform national rules, gives the NCAA greater enforcement authority. I don't know how it's going to do that. They're already a laughing joke, to be honest, and potentially slow the free agency environment that has developed since 2021. So that being said, this is what what the Big Ten had to say. Let me bring that up real quick. Actually, this is the SEC's, this is what they said. But basically, if you read their statements, they're virtually the same exact statement. The Big Ten Conference and the Southeastern Conference support a sustainable national framework for college sports, one with effective transfer portal, clear eligibility standards and protections and benefits for student athletes. While we appreciate the leadership of Senators Cruz and Cantwell in pursuing these shared goals, we do not support the Protect College Sports Act as drafted. So they agree, they support the rules. They just don't necessarily agree on everything that's been drafted. The bill leaves critical issues unresolved. It does not meaningfully preempt the patchwork of state laws or provide the protections needed to make and enforce consistent rules, both essential to long-term stability in college athletics. It also shifts ongoing rulemaking to Congress, limiting the ability to adapt quickly as the landscape evolves. Rather than reducing litigation, the bill likely expands it without offering clear alternatives for dispute resolutions. Finally, the bill alters the House settlement and revenue sharing framework in a way that may result in fewer student athletes receiving direct revenue share payments. We are committed to working with the Senator Cruz and Cantwell and other members of Congress to improve this legislation so that it can provide lasting stability for college athletics. I kind of agree with them. I do agree. I can see how it does take some of the revenue away from students. And what I mean by that, when you look at like the Big Ten or the SEC, or even, I'll even say the Big 12, who have, arguably, I would say they have probably the top three national TV deals, right? The Big Ten has Fox Sports, the Big Ten Network. The SEC has ESPN, ABC, even the SEC channel, to give you an example. For me, I kind of feel like I can see what they're talking about. If you have 75% of the FCS or FBS rule that, they need to tap into some of these TV deals, that's going to force places like the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, other conferences, let's say the ACC. I think the ACC has a TV deal as well. And it's going to force them to have to infuse some of that revenue that they get from that and infuse it towards conferences like the MAC, the AAC, the Mountain West, the Pac-12. I don't even know if they still exist, but yeah, these conferences are starting to have to get paid for not having these deals, right? Well, for me, that's going to, if I'm a college or a program, let's say I'm a college football program, that's going to take away from revenue that I can pay new recruits with, that I can pay NIL money out with. I won't necessarily be able to be competitive with all these different schools when it comes to recruiting and stuff. I understand there's a money issue, but ultimately I don't want to take money out of the players' hands either. So is there a right answer or wrong answer to this? I'll tell you what the right answer for me is that I feel that the smaller conferences need to start putting out better content. If they put out better a better product and make more wiser decisions when it comes to the TV deals that they're in. um, I think that they won't have to tap into the revenue of the bigger schools. It's like, oh, you're a small minority conference. Let me go ahead and pay you. It's the minority tax. That's basically how I look at it when it comes to big sharing money from bigger conferences like the SEC or the Big Ten or even the Big 12, which we're going to talk about today. Um, it feels like we're punishing them just because the other conferences don't have that kind of I don't want to call it a super conference, but as popular of a conference. Look, just because you're not in a specific conference doesn't mean that you have to what do I want to say? You don't have to do how do I say this? You don't have to suffer from it. Let's look at Notre Dame, for example, Steve. What do you think about Notre Dame? Notre Dame's not in any conference, but I'll tell you, they get a lot of national coverage, right? They get paid. They make smart financial deals, right? I think it's just a matter of putting your money in the proper places can help you, not just in the long period of time or just for you as an individual, but can help your conference. Maybe these conferences need to look at their TV rights negotiation and make it fair across the board for all the teams. When it comes to I know the ACC has had some TV rights issues. Like I'll give you an example. I don't know if it's still this way, but I think Hurricane games were being played on Bally Sports at one point. Am I right about that, Steve? It was only on Bally Sports. I didn't have Bally Sports. I couldn't watch any Hurricane game. I live in South Florida and I can't watch a Hurricane game, to give you an example, right? I think that's kind of messed up. I think you need to make more smarter decisions. There's a lot of TV networks and ones that are readily available for teams to be on the national stage. Let it be CBS, ABC, NBC. You own Saturdays. Use it wisely. To give you an example. What do you think of Steve? What do you think of this, Steve? Do you agree with what the SEC and Big Ten are saying? How do you feel about it?
I mean, we've talked about them somehow creating a limiting basis on all of this stuff because there is an imbalance across all of college sports, and it's something that I was just gonna comment on that too. It's something kind of like you and I were talking about backstage. That they need to find a way to balance across the board because at the end of the day, it's like if the NFL had three teams and the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Patriots, right? They had all the money, all the boosters, and so they get to buy all the players in the league, and everybody else has just kind of got to figure out the scraps. So I do think that the way the bill was set up is they're trying to promote kids going to the smaller schools, and the bigger schools don't like it because they're losing money from it, because ultimately it's about making money. It's not about putting the best program on the field. If I'm making sense in what I'm trying to say, like from an overall perspective, and we talked about this, right? Because
What
we
conference are
agree.
you referencing? What conference are you referencing that it's that way though? Because I'll just to put my point in the sand real quick. The SEC and Big Ten, though, yeah, it's more money. I get it. They put a pretty good, darn good product on the field and on TV.
But they
You know
do.
what I'm saying?
But that's but
So
it's because it's pay to win. That's
hey, to
basically
win.
what college sports have become. And it's getting really close to being a 100% thing where you can just buy to win. I mean, what did we talk about Indiana last year? Like we talked about how, before Kurt Cinetti got there, they were this losing thing and they didn't win anything. But you also know what they did once Kurt Cinetti got there?
They paid.
They they spent money. They
Yeah,
went
they
and they had, what was it, the second oldest, if not the oldest team in college sports.
They were
Like,
the most losingest team in college sports. Yes.
well, no, I'm talking about age-wise. They
Oh,
had a bunch
they were the
of
oldest. Yeah, they were one of the oldest teams. What he did is he tapped into the transfer portal and brought in players that were veterans, right? They weren't necessarily 5-star athletes, but they've been in college enough to know how to play college football, how to maintain their body, and knew how to play a role big time. And that's what really transformed Indiana. This season, I said it in the last episode, they spent over $34 million NIL is what their current how much their current roster valuation is as of right now. Look, I want to respond to Niner real quick before I forget my thoughts. He says, "What is the difference between amateur football and college football? Not much. At this rate, they should not have minor league for. They should just make it a minor league for the NFL. College football has always been a feeder system for the NFL. This is how it's been from day one, to be honest. The reality is that players have the ability to be paid for the work that they do, right? You think about it, it wasn't fair before. You have all these conferences and teams making millions upon millions and we'll just say billions collectively. They deserve part of the pie. So I understand there's really not much difference. You're right. I would say the difference that should be incorporated, which this kind of alluded to, this legislation that they're talking about, but I need to see more specific detail. I think they need to put some restrictions on, like, you don't just have kids coming to play football and then not participating in school. And what I mean by that is,
yes,
I've read so many different stories about players that, you know, were way like I want to say it was like, I don't know if it was Beck from Miami or
yep,
it was another quarterback that didn't even have to take class. It didn't have to take class. He already graduated, already had his master's degree. He was just there to play football. That was it. If you're playing football for the team, you should be forced to have a certain GPA or a certain, you should be in school, essentially what I'm saying, right? That's just how I look at it. And that's why I kind of agreed to the 5-year rule, because by 5 years, you should either have your bachelor's or your master's. And if you don't, it's because you're becoming a doctor, to be honest. That's basically how I look at it. So I think they need to incorporate more of that. I'm not worried about the money. I am happy about the rules when it comes to the transfer portal. I think that is long overdue. So they're definitely, I agree with that. I don't think we should reward lower conferences just because they don't have the same deal as the SEC or the other. I don't think so. And almost in Colors in the chat. Color, put it in the chat. Do you think sharing your revenue with other lower conferences that don't partake in your product you put out or your actual TV deal, do you think that's a form of socialism and not necessarily capitalism? I think it's anti-capitalism, essentially, is how I look at it. Please let me know what you think. Oh, it's Marxism. That's what he says. It's Marxism. I don't know whatever the difference between Marxism and socialism. I'm not really up on that. But what I want to say is that I think it goes against our values on the business model that we run on this country. Capitalism means that you make an investment to capitalize on your product, right? You have to continued investment and you build up your own product, essentially. That's how I look at capitalism. Now, you look at, let's say this went through and we did pay other conferences. Well, that can mean a couple things. You're taking revenue away from the players, right? So you don't get to pay players the same rate that you're already paying them. And then 2, you're also looking at it in a sense that I'm rewarding that other school for not doing the hard work that we're doing. That's not fair. I just don't think it's fair to the players. I don't think it's fair to football fans. I don't think it's fair to the conference. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's just how I think about it. So
Can I put my 2 cents on that comment?
Please do it. Please do.
So and this is a topic we've talked about on here a couple times since I've joined. Uh, there used to be a big difference between minor league football and college football. The big difference was amateur football was about guys playing the sport to win and maybe get looked at for the NFL. College used to be the kids who we developed. They're molded clay, the best kids in the country, sometimes not even the best kids in the country. The kids from high school come into college, they get recruited by these schools, they get molded like a piece of clay into an NFL caliber player, and then go into the draft. And they come into the league and continue to be developed, or you get the kids that are just the supreme athletes who are ready day one, right? Nowadays, college isn't about developing anymore. It's about trying to win national championships. It's about winning. It's it's different. And Tom Brady touched on this. And then that's why, and I agreed with him. The days of being a redshirt quarterback being a good thing so you can learn and be molded your first year are gone. Now it's almost a hindrance to some of these kids because they just sit there and they don't get the time developed into them like they used to, so that when their name is called, they're ready to go. Now, we saw a semblance of this last year with one of the teams we were going to talk about today in the Big 12, so I don't want to go too much into that. And uh I can't. I'm not even gonna attempt to say his first name. It's like Brennan Morton, who took Texas Tech to the playoffs after both the starter and the backup got hurt last year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a whole thing. Like they need they need to find a way to get back, in my opinion, to the development stage, because I think the NFL is even suffering from it, that these guys are coming in and they're not developed. They're just a bunch of raw players who need time to figure it out and then eventually become good, but then it's time to pay them. And it's leading to these inflated salaries, and it's just the offensive linemen are not as good as they used to be. Offensive line across the league is nowhere near as developed as it used to be. Like it's a whole thing, a whole, so what I'm looking for, um, or phrase I'm looking for. It's like the snowball rolling downhill, right? As it rolls, it just gets bigger and bigger because the snow just keeps adding on to it. So
Yeah.
I I do, and I agreed with Niner. I do believe athletes need to be compensated for their play, but I also do believe that players should have to stay at certain schools for a certain period of time, because when you went to that school, they were the ones who gave you the shot. Now, what I do think, and to that 5 year thing that we were talking about before, I do think students should have the availability after 4 years at a school to go to a bigger school their senior year and try to get recognition for the NFL draft. Because we see it all the time. These kids only need a year to jump up.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I agree with Niner. I want the players to be paid, and I do think that there should be limitations when it comes to the transfer portal. 100%. I agree. None of this 1 year wonder here, 1 year wonder there. None of that. Right now, I do it in the back. I'm sorry. In previous years, it was like that, where you stayed at a school for 3 or 4 years, and then the last year you transferred out, right, to work on your craft or whatever. But now it's like, oh, I'm a freshman, I'm going to go here for a year. Oh, I didn't get any as much playing time I like, I'm going to transfer to Kentucky or Alabama. Oh, who's offering? Who was the guy, the quarterback from Tennessee that went to UCLA of all places? Remember, we sat here for like 2 weeks trying to figure out where he was going to go, and he ended up going to UCLA for lesser money too. And he went to a state that has some ridiculous taxes. It's not even funny, to be honest. It's so expensive to live there too. I don't know. It just financially, it didn't make sense, and it didn't make sense for his ability either. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting. We'll see what happens with this legislation. I just want certain things to be ironed out. but I also don't want the level of talent to diminish. I already have issues with that being the fact that players are being paid in this sense, so they don't necessarily have to put full effort in for that big payday in the NFL. But I don't want the level of talent to diminish even more because some of these crazy rules that are or no rules, I would say, that are going on now. Everybody hit the like button. Everyone watching, thank you so much. Make sure you hit the like button. Just as a reminder, please follow us at 4th and 10U on the 4th and 10U channel. I know a lot of you are watching from TFTG. That's fine. But come over to 4th and 10U. Please follow us there. Starting this week, either Thursday or Friday, probably Friday afternoon, we're going to start posting exclusive content, an episode here or there that will only be found at 4th and 10U. Just so you guys know that, not on the TFTG network. We'll still do live shows every Tuesday that you can find us there. But when it comes to these pre-recorded episodes that we're going to, like, for example, Color would love this. We're going to break down the Miami Hurricanes, right? We're going to give you a complete breakdown of this year's Miami Hurricane team, what we think they can do, what they can become, maybe some projections. We're going to break them down in our first pre-recorded episode that we're going to post there. All right, so hit the like button. We're going to talk about the big bad Big 12. So the Big 12. So the 2026 Big 12 season is shaping up to be one of the deepest and most competitive races in college football. Unlike conferences like the SEC or even the Big 10 or ACC, unlike those conferences, there's not just one clear favorite. There's like as many as 6 teams that have a legitimate chance of actually winning the Big 12. Most preseason rankings place Texas Tech, the Raiders, BYU Cougars, Houston Cougars. That's funny. I didn't realize Houston was the Cougars. I'm not sure if that's correct, though. When I typed this out, I might have that might be wrong. I have to check that. But Houston is in the Big 12 for sure. Arizona Wildcats, the Utah Utes, and Arizona State Sun Devils at the top of the league, with Texas Tech and BYU entering the summer as slight favorites. That's kind of what the projection is right now. Texas Tech remains loaded despite the departure of quarterback Baron Morton, who finished his career with 8,986 passing yards and 71 touchdowns. The Red Raiders landed former Cincinnati star Brendan Sorsby, who's viewed as one of the conference's top signal callers, and give Joey McGuire's program another legitimate college football playoff push until he was suspended for gambling. And talk about a crazy situation. One day we're going to have to really break down the current situation with Brandon Sorsby, but that whole thing is just crazy what's going on right now. So
all the way down to sending money to somebody in another state to bet
just
for
so he can get away with not cheating, but gambling. So really weird. And did you see he was gambling a lot on Indiana? The Indiana games is what he was putting a lot of his money towards. Surprising. So that was kind of nuts. BYU enters the 2026 as after a 12-2 campaign and Big 12 championship game appearance. The Cougars return one of the conference's most complete rosters and are expected to contend with the title behind a veteran offense and one of the league's most strongest defenses. Arizona remains dangerous thanks to quarterback Noah Fifita. I'm sorry if I cannot say that. That's Fifita. Fifita. Maybe that's how you say it. I'm not sure. Who rewrote school passing records and helped engineer a dramatic turnaround in 2025. Arizona State also remains a threat after providing in 2024 breakthrough was proving that it was no fluke, while Utah hopes dual threat quarterback Devon Dampier can lead the Utes back to the top during a transition period following the retirement of legendary coach Kyle Whittingham, who ended up not retiring, going to Michigan instead. Crazy. I thought he was going to retire. But he ends up becoming the Michigan head coach. Houston, quietly as one of the league's most talented rosters, could be a surprise team that crashes the playoff conversation. So let's get into it. Where do you want to start? What team do you want to start with, Steve?
I think we leave the best for the last, and we go ahead and start with the BYU Cougars.
The Cougars, okay. BYU may have been the most balanced roster in conference. May have the most balanced conference roster. Sophomore quarterback Bear Bachheimer burst onto the national scene in 2025, throwing over 3,033 yards while accounting for 26 total touchdowns. The Cougars won 12 games and reached the Big 12 championship game behind a disciplined offense and physical defense. Bachheimer's continued development could make him one of the conference's best players by season's end. Impact players include the Bear Bachheimer, as I mentioned before, as QB. A veteran BYU offensive line is there, and their BYU's front seven on their defense. The prediction is a 10-2 team and a college football playoff contender. How do you feel about the BYU Cougars?
Well, you brought up a lot of it, and I thought you were about to talk about also their very experienced offensive line. So they bring back one of the,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, they bring back one of the more productive dual threat quarterbacks in the conference. Roto Baller ranked them third in the Big 12 entering 2026. He has the ability between his passing ability and his rushing ability, along with just his knowledge of the system. It's just a great situation with a returning head coach in Kalani Sataki. They have stability, and sometimes stability means more than anything. I think they're going to have a really good season going forward, if as long as health permits and this quarterback continues to play as well as he did. I mean, he had 11 rushing touchdowns last year on 500 yards. So between the passing and rushing, a good defense, and a very experienced offensive line, they're definitely going to be an interesting team to play and kind of map out through the year.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I think they're going to be very, very interesting. It'll be. I think they have a very well coached team. I want to say their head coach was sought after a lot in this past offseason. There was connection with Penn State. A lot of people thought Penn State were going to try to hire him, but
they said he turned them down.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly, like several teams tried to get a hold of him, and he told them all no. He believes in BYU and he wants to build there.
Absolutely. All right, next we'll talk about the Arizona Wildcats. Arizona's championship hopes begin and end with quarterback Noah Fifita, I think is how you say it. Actually, you know what? There's a great thing called Google. Google pronounce this. There we go. Fifita. That's how you say it. Fifita. So Fifita, just so you know, who threw over 3,228 yards and 29 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions in 2025, while leading the Wildcats to a 9-win season. Arizona returns as one of the conference's most experienced quarterbacks and should again field one of the Big 12's most efficient passing attacks. Fifita's ability to protect the football and distribute the deep receiving corps makes Arizona's dangerous every week. If Wildcats can improve their pass rush and defensive consistency, they have a legitimate chance, Steve. I want to say their impact players. Noah, obviously, is probably one of their biggest impact players. They have a returning offensive line as well as a veteran secondary returning from a 9-win team. Early prediction is 9-3 team, top 4 Big 12 finish, essentially. They're going to be one of the top 4 teams in the Big 12. What do you think?
Well, I mean, you take a 9-win team and then you add what was considered the fourth best uh recruiting class in the Big 12, 36th overall nationally. They're calling this the best class since 2022. They brought in 20 new recruits, including six four-star recruits. They got you brought up Noah Fifita, their senior, right? This will probably be his last year with them if he decides to go to the NFL, which I think he will. But they match that up by bringing in the highest rated quarterback that they've signed since 2001, freshman Oscar Rios. Um,
Mm.
so they literally just stocked up depth. They brought in a running back who was 25th nationally in Brandon Smith. They brought in a wide receiver who was who was a top 15 California prospect, R.J. Mosley. They brought in the number two prospect in Washington, a tight end named Henry Gabalis. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
And then they added two monster offensive tackles. Like they really loaded up and are ready to be a pain in the ass to somebody, I would imagine. Um, Run the ball, play physical, and continue to play with their timing and rhythm offense that they built for Noah.
Very very interesting. I think it's going to be really interesting what they do. One thing I want to say about the Big 12, I'm just going to make an early assumption or just to kind of give people the standings that are not very familiar with the Big 12. The Big 12, in my opinion, has become like this offensive conference. It's big time offense. There's each team has a quarterback, and it just seems like a big deep, fast-paced offense. When it comes to their teams, you have teams like Oklahoma or Texas Tech that have the air raid offense. Kansas State, Iowa State, everybody has a quarterback, and it all comes down to who can score the most and who can slow anyone else down. Right? I've seen Oklahoma when they were in the Big 12, having these big time shootouts over the years, and it was just whoever can just slow the other down just slightly to see who would win. It's going to be a really big time competition, I think, this year. All right, the next team I want to talk about, and let me go back to my notes. I'm so sorry. I want to talk about the Arizona State Sun Devils. Arizona State faces significant turnover after the departure of Sam Levitt, who transferred following an outstanding career in Tempe. The Sun Devils are expected to turn to transfer quarterback Cutter Boley, who threw for 2,160 yards and 15 touchdowns at Kentucky. Kenny Dillingham's offense remains explosive, but replacing Levitt's leadership and production will be the biggest challenge in the conference. Arizona State still possesses elite skill talent, should remain competitive for a conference title if Boley develops quickly. In addition to Boley, they also have Arizona State. Their whole receiving core is kind of explosive, to be honest. And you have the offensive system that Kenny Dillingham has put together. They're really like an 8-4, maybe a 7-5 team, maybe a dark horse contender. That's basically where I see Arizona State sitting at. With that also being said, when you look at who they brought in, the biggest thing is quarterback, right? They brought in Boley, who came from Kentucky. They lost Sam Levitt. You look at some of their returns, some players that they brought back recently. When it comes to their defense, they have Zyrus Fiasu, Martell Hughes, Chance Rucker, and Clayton Smith, who's one of the most disruptive athletes on the defense. Offensively, when you talk about their wide receivers, they have Amarian Miller, Reed Harris, and Raiden Vines. Both those guys are going to be very interesting in that receiving core. What do you think about Arizona State?
Well, I think they went and got a quarterback that fits exactly what they like to do.
Yeah.
They love their vertical passing tempo. They love to go deep. Broly has that arm. Like he has a cannon. So his ability to read deep, like he needs some development, obviously, to play a little better in rhythm and tempo. But from a cannon perspective, he has a nice deep ball. But he's boomer bust. I mean, like he's either going to be really good or he's going to be oofa. So we'll see what they do with what they have. I mean, they have a deep wide receiver room. They have a decent running back rotation that they need to work. Last year they had issue with turnovers, so they need to clean that up. And it's still a question on their offensive line. They really just kind of have a few starters, and then it's just a bunch of other dudes. So they're gonna have to hope some of the developmental guys that they brought in and tried to get some work out of step up this year.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Definitely, I agree with that. The offensive line really got to step up. And we'll see what the quarterback can do. If he can develop quickly with that cannon of an arm, definitely. I do like the receivers, though. So they still got some people on that team with some elite talent and skills. So we'll see. The next team has a really interesting story. Baylor's offense was not the problem in 2025. The Baylor Bears averaged 31.1 points and 451.1 yards per game, ranking near the top of the league in total offense. The problem was defense. Baylor allowed 32.6 points per game and one of the worst marks in the Big 12 history. Offensively, the major storyline is Florida transfer DJ No Swag Lagway. just some heat there. Former 5-star quarterback replacing Sawyer Robertson. Defensively, new coordinator Joe Klanderman has to rebuild structure, front seven discipline, and red zone toughness. Baylor's season depends on whether Lagway lifts the ceiling while the defense stops bleeding points. Look, if Baylor is anywhere what I think it is and what it has been, if they have the speedster receivers, to be honest, which they generally have speedsters on their team, DJ Lagway should have it easy. All he needs to do is throw the ball up, right? That's what he needs to do and not make stupid decisions and drop the ball, to be honest. As long as he does that, I think the offense is still going to continue to click. My biggest concern with this team is the defense. That defense has to be, must improve. They had one of the worst defenses last season, so they have to really improve. My early projection for this team is a 6-6 team. What do you think, Steve?
Well, see, you kind of just explained why they're probably not going to be a good football team this year. DJ Lagway has arm. He has an arm. He has legs. He has a head. Unfortunately, there's just not much in it. This man's decision making is just disgusting. It's just bad. He doesn't read the field very well. He plays when they're open and he can see them, he's going to get them the ball. That arm can reach anywhere on the field. He'll make plays with his legs, but he's just a terrible decision maker. They have some speedy receivers. They have some big play receivers. I think the offense takes a step back this year, and I don't necessarily believe the defense got any better. So we'll see. I think this team is going to be a coin flip. I don't know if it's necessarily 6-6, but it's definitely a coin flip every game.
Yeah, it's a 50-50 game. You never know what you're going to get, to be honest. I agree. Their only saving hope is that they score more points. They outscore the opponent. That's really how I look at it. Cincinnati Bearcats. Cincinnati loses the engine of its 2025 offense with the loss of Brendan Sorsby, who transferred out to Texas Tech, but then gets suspended. He seems to be a name that keeps popping up here at 4th and 10U. Who threw over 2,800 yards and 27 touchdowns before transferring. The Bearcats averaged 30.3 points and 407.3 yards per game last season, but that production now has to be replaced. Likely JC French. That's who you're probably going to see replace some of that production. Defensively, Cincinnati allowed 25.6 per game, which is competitive but not championship level. The issue is finishing. Cincinnati has ended one of the last 2 seasons on 5-game losing streaks. Again, I don't see them being the most worst team. I don't see them being very competitive, kind of a middle of the run, 6-6, maybe a 4-8 team. That's where I'm kind of seeing Cincinnati. I don't want to say they're rebuilding totally, but they need to add some more weapons to really up their ante again. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the sad part is they didn't put enough effort, in my opinion, to find some weaponry in the wide receiver room. It still is a weakness for them. They still have a good linebacker crew. They still have a strong interior defensive line. They love to blitz the hell out of everybody, so they get pressure. It really just comes down to this quarterback they brought in. I mean, he's a pocket passer with a little bit of mobility.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's smart, so we'll see. Maybe he can be like a high end game manager if they can get a good run game going around him. Replacing Sorsby is going to be hard. I mean, really hard. I don't think people really put a lot of thought into just how important he was for that offense last year.
Yeah. We were talking quarterbacks for all these teams, and I want to say I really like some of these quarterback names that I'm seeing. DJ Lagway. We talked about Brendan Sorsby, who's obviously not going to be there. You look at names like Connor Wegman from the Houston Cougars, and I want to say Kansas State had God, I forget his first name, but it was like Avery, I think was his last name. They had last year. It's just to me, it's like this league is just offense. This whole conference offense. It's all about the quarterback name. All these teams are averaging like 400 yards a game. It's really impressive. I just want to point that out.
His backup, JC French's backup, his name is Brady Lichtenberg.
Oh, wow. That's crazy name too. That's funny. Colorado, let's talk about the Buffaloes, right? Colorado Buffaloes, Coach Prime and the Buffaloes. Colorado remains one of the biggest rebuilds in the league. I don't know what's going on. After the first season and maybe the second, it just seems like Colorado's been on this like rebuild, right? They haven't really got their foot running and everything. The Buffs averaged only 20.9 points per game, which I want to say, looking at a lot of these teams, it's one of the lowest amounts, if not the lowest. In 2025, they allowed 30.5 points per game. Offensively, quarterback Julian Lewis returns, but Colorado also added former Utah quarterback Isaac Wilson, creating a real QB competition. So that's one thing they have going for them. Maybe we'll finally figure out who the QB is for Buffalo. The biggest offensive loss is tackle Jordan Seaton, a potential first-round NFL prospect. Colorado also replaced both coordinators and brought in 43 portal players, so the roster will look completely different from previous years. I'm not expecting too much. I think with the turnover, you still have to build chemistry. You still have to figure out who your quarterback is. You brought in new coordinators altogether. It's like a whole different team, and they have to learn how to play together. They have to find identity. I don't want to say, I hate to say this, but I really don't think Colorado has ever had identity under Coach Prime, right? The identity was Shedeur Sanders, and then he's gone. And since then, I don't really think they've had anything, to be honest. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think they're a 4-8 team. I wouldn't even be surprised if they're 3-9, to be honest. I hate to say that, but that's how I feel about Colorado. What do you think?
Man, it's almost like they lost two really good wide receivers and a Heisman Trophy winning superstar corner wide receiver who was carrying that entire team, and it had nothing to do with the trash can quarterback that they had behind center before.
Damn, I thought I was throwing heat. You're really slinging the lava, man. Damn. Keep
I
going. Keep
hate
going.
I hate let me reiterate. I hate what they have done to Coach Prime as a coach. They have put this expectation of this man is the best thing since sliced bread. Look at what he did for forget Jackson State. Now he's going to Colorado. Oh my God, look at what Colorado is. The dude is a I think he's actually a good coach, believe it or not. I do actually believe he's a very good coach, and I do think he instills the right mindsets on these players. But Travis Hunter carried that team
Mm.
on both sides of the ball. Absolutely no question. That quarterback, his Shador was running around doing stupid shit like he was trying to play Madden. Now they're trying to fix the team. And I do actually think he's doing a decent job at it. I do actually like the quarterback they brought in, the Julian Lewis kid. He's got a good arm. He's a decent processor. He had I forget how many games he played, but he threw 4 touchdowns, no turnovers, and five almost 600 yards, and very limited plays.
Hmm.
Like I think he's a better quarterback than any of the quarterbacks that they have. I mean, the kid's a former 5-star athlete. So
Yeah.
I if what they did last year and with what transfer portal stuffs and recruiting they did this year, I do think they'll be better than they were last year. I just don't know by how much.
Yeah, I guess where I'm, how do I say this? Where I am like disappointed when it comes to what has transpired at Colorado is I had the assumption that with Coach Prime, he could get his recruiting off, off to a great start, and we wouldn't have to play these transfer portal games, right? Bringing in 43 portal players in a single offseason to me feels like you're a brand new head coach and you lost your entire team. You know what I'm saying? They really need to start learning how to recruit. I get it. You didn't really have to work, at Jackson State, they they didn't really have the biggest destination when it comes to recruiting. I get it. But now you're playing at Colorado and in the Big 12, which is one of the top 4 conferences, to be honest. It's one of the Power 5 conferences. Um, and for me, I kind of feel like you really need to figure out your recruiting. You brought in great coaches, great. I've seen a lot of coaches over the years you've had there. I want to say Marshall Falk was there, Brian Leftwich was there, right? This is great NFL talent coaches, but we need to see you put it together on the recruiting trail. You shouldn't have to go out and buy players, and that's kind of how I feel like what he's been doing for the past 3 seasons. So that's just me. And for a
I mean,
program, I don't think it's healthy.
I will say this, the one thing I do like that they're trying to do, even though I'm not a big fan, as I agree with you on so many, Colorado was one of those teams for quite a few years, even when Shador and Travis Hunter were there. They were big play magnets. Like if they couldn't sustain drives, if you punched them in the face, they would fold. Like you could physically dominate them. And that kind of continues to now. Now I'm starting to wonder if that's a trait of Dion as a head coach. If he's just, but you see the videos of him trying to instill the toughness, but I just don't know if he knows how to translate it to the field.
Yeah.
They're weak on their defense. Their defense is kind of just wet paper, and their offense is, if they're not hitting big plays, they're not scoring points.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next team. We're going to talk about the Houston Cougars. Houston is one of the best sleeper teams in the Big 12. The Cougars averaged 29.1 points per game and allowed 22.8, showing real balance. Willie Fritz has built continuity, and quarterback Connor Wegman returns with receiver Amari Thomas. The biggest offensive addition, I'm kind of excited to see how he looks in this offense. Mekhi Hughes, who had 2 previous 1,000-yard rushing seasons before his time at Oregon. Houston also added 5-star freshman quarterback Keyshawn Henderson. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly. Another dynamic rushing threat. Prediction, I'm going to go and say it. I could see them either being 9-3, maybe a sneaky 10-2 team who absolutely make the Big 12 title game and make a run at being a contender, to be honest. Houston could be that team if it goes their way. It's going to come down to defense and really holding it down, to be honest, though. So, we'll see what their schedule looks like, but that's kind of what I think about Houston Cougars. What do you think?
Well, first off, shout out Patrick Paul of the Houston Cougars. Appreciate you, big dog. The great thing about watching them, you notice they don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't beat themselves. Like
very well coached. Very well coached, I would say. Very well coached.
Yeah. They just don't beat themselves, right? Like they're not out here. The quarterback's not out here running and juking and jiving and tossing the ball 15 yards the other way. Like they play a very consistent run pass team. Throw in a little play action, and it's worked well for them. I agree. Like if they continue to play as well on defense as they have, and they continue to play mistake-free football, you're going to find yourself pretty damn close to that title game.
Definitely. Quick break from this content, which I really like talking about the Big 12. Everybody hit the like button, subscribe if you're brand new. Make sure you subscribe to at 4th and 10U. Like I said, there's going to be exclusive content that you can only find at 4th and 10U YouTube channel that we're going to start posting there. And we're still going to do Tuesdays. We'll be live everywhere still, but our exclusive content is going to be there. Did you see the Jordan Schultz report about Aaron Donald real quick?
About him probably coming back to the NFL?
He responded to a text. He texted him about it, and he said, I'm really flirting with the idea. It's hell of an opportunity to make another Super Bowl run. Very interesting. Will Aaron Donald be back? Oh, that's going to be an interesting one.
I mean, you go and get Max Crosby. Hell yeah, he's probably coming back.
Yep. Also, he went to Pittsburgh, didn't he?
Who?
Aaron Donald.
Oh, God. I have no idea. I don't remember.
I think he went to Pittsburgh. I could be wrong, though. I know he's from Pittsburgh. Just trying to think what college he went to. Yeah, he went to Pittsburgh. Yes.
Yep.
So he went to Pitt. So shout out to Pitt, Aaron Donald product. Just want to shout out to them real quick since we're on a college football show. I just wanted to bring that up. I got that highlighted on my Twitter feed, and I was like, whoa, that's big news. All right. Let's continue on this conversation. If you make sure you hit the like button. Again, follow us at 4th and 10U. We're going to have exclusive content that you can only find on there once or twice a week. We're going to put out a pre-recorded episode in addition to Tuesday's live show that we'll have everywhere still. But we're going to start putting out more content. Iowa State Cyclones. Now, I wish I had my bro Mystic up here. Niners, if you're still in the chat, if you want to come talk about Iowa State, let us know. We'll drop you the link. But I'm going to talk as much as I know about Iowa State. This is where Mystic really should have been here, but he's not here today, unfortunately. Iowa State had a strong 2025 on paper, allowing 20.2 points per game. But 2026 is a major reset. The Cyclones lost head coach Matt Campbell to Penn State, and Desert News reported he took a large number of Iowa State players with him. Yeah, obviously he did do that. New coach Jimmy Rogers brought in 48 transfers, so there's chemistry, heavy rebuild. Offensively, Iowa State averaged 27.4 points per game, but the concern is whether the new staff can keep the program disciplined and identity intact. I can tell you right now, they have quarterback questions. They lost, what is his name? God, what is their former quarterback's name?
Rocco Beck?
Yeah, Rocco Beck. Rocco Beck has gone, went to Penn State, right? Followed Matt Campbell. They got a lot of question marks across the board. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep their identity intact. It'll be very interesting. Some people have them as a good program, but too much staff and roster attrition. I agree. I think Iowa State is still a good program. They really just need to get through this, use this season to transition and kind of, build that foundation to move forward with. I think that's kind of what we're looking at. I don't expect them to be top contenders, maybe 5-7 or 4-8. That's kind of where I have them. What do you think, Steve?
I would be lying if I could tell you who Iowa State is, because Iowa State don't even know who Iowa State is right now. They have lost. They lost. Their head coach was their identity. Like, no question that he was their identity. Physical defense, physical offense, running the football. We have no idea what the hell that team's going to look like. I'd be amazed they win 2 games this year, to be honest. And that's not me trying to hate on them. I just, what do I go on? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's very, very interesting. I do know this though, that where Iowa State is located, the city that they're in, don't ask me what it is. I just know of it. That whole program, that university, the fans, the fan base in that area were devastated when Matt Campbell left. Like, they loved that man. I don't know how you carry a torch and follow like the same type of identity after him leaving. I don't know. It's going to be very, very hard. You had guys like I don't want to call him the GM, but the director of athletics for Iowa State crying like in tears, just talking about Matt Campbell. So it's going to be really, really interesting. But yeah, let's talk about Kansas State next. Look, for me, Kansas State, the Jayhawks, or actually not Kansas State, Kansas Jayhawks is who we're going to talk about first. I'm sorry. Kansas averaged 28.1 points per game in 2025 and allowed 26.8, which shows that they are very competitive but inconsistent. The major offensive loss is longtime quarterback Jalen Daniels. The Jayhawks are now looking. Actually, is it the same Jalen Daniels or is it a different one? Let me look that up.
What are you talking about? It's the backup quarterback that signed with the Bucks.
Oh, that's right. It's
not
a different
Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, Daniels. I'm sorry. Their name looks so similar, like similar.
Similar.
Yeah, it looked very similar. Similar. Can't even talk today. Wow, this is how you know I'm tired. The Jayhawks are now looking at quarterback competition between Isaiah Marshall and Cole Ballard. The positive news is return of offensive coordinator Andy Koldenecki, I think is how you say it, who previously helped spark Kansas' offensive rise before leaving for Penn State. Defensively, Kansas is replacing talent on multiple levels and must become more physical in league play. I want to say there's major uncertainty at QB. I think the biggest news for Kansas is the QB battle. We'll definitely see what how the offensive coordinator clicks with the QB and how he develops. I'm going to go ahead and say I think they're a 5-7 team, maybe 4-8, something like that. I think the biggest thing is the QB battle, to be honest. What are your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I believe Marshall was a redshirt freshman last year, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what he was. I mean, it's another one of those situations where like it comes down to who I think will win. I do think they'll stick with Marshall as their starter. I mean, he has the traits. It's just, will he put it to the field? And then that defense has got to get better. It wasn't good enough last year. We saw that. It just is what it is. They got some stuff to figure out. I was not a big fan of Jalen Daniels, not Jalen Daniels.
Jalen, yeah.
He was mobile. He had a decent arm. They tried to highlight him during the East-West Shrine Bowl, and he got overshadowed by the quarterback that ended up signing with the Dolphins, which I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, but he was at Iowa last year. Yeah, I don't know. Kansas has some things they got to figure out. They were not explosive. Their defense was just okay. They need better from defense, and they got now a young quarterback who's in his first year starting, who was a redshirt freshman. So, they got to see what he's got.
Yeah, I agree. We got to see what he has, and we'll see. That team, like I said, I think they're middle of the pack, maybe on the slight lower end of the middle of the pack. But their biggest question mark is going to be the QB battle. So we'll see what happens there. Now we can talk about Kansas State, the Kansas State Wildcats. I've been kind of, if I have to pick a Big 12 team, to be honest, it's either going to be Texas Tech or, in my opinion, Kansas State. I like both teams, to be honest. Those are the teams that I like. Over the years, I've watched Kansas State. They had Will Howard. Famously, they had a former Miami Dolphin quarterback that we'll not name, that a lot of people hate on. But they've been one of the more physical and competitive teams over the years. Even the corner that we have with the Miami Dolphins right now, Juju Brents, he went to Kansas State, right? And one thing I know that they always brought was physicality to the game. And I really appreciated that for what it was. And they also most recently had one of the better receivers, I want to say, coming out of college. I want to say this past offseason. Who was the receiver that came out recently, got drafted? Was it Boston? Was it Boston?
Was Denzel Boston from Kansas State?
I might be wrong. It's either Boston went to Washington or someplace like that. Let me find out.
He went to Washington, I believe. It wasn't Kansas. It wasn't Kansas. I can tell you that now.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll tell you who it was. Maybe it's J.C. Brown I'm thinking of. I don't know. I'll come back to that. I know they had someone get drafted recently that was a wide receiver.
Juwan Jennings went there, didn't he?
Juwan Jennings did go there. Um, no, I was wrong. They didn't have any receivers selected. I thought they had one.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know Boston went to it was either Washington or Wisconsin. I think
I'm
it was
pretty sure
Washington.
Boston went to Washington. I know for a fact he did. Okay. All right. Well, I'll come back. Let's come back to that thought. I thought they had a big time receiver there at one point. Maybe I'm thinking of a different team. But the Wildcats, like I said, they averaged 29.4 points per game, but it allowed 26.7, which is too average for a program that's built on physicality. Like I said, they always had physicality. The key returner is quarterback Avery Johnson. And one thing I want to say about Avery Johnson is I hope to God he comes back this season a lot more mature than that crazy season he had last season. I don't know if you guys know this, but like I want to say Avery Johnson. Did you ever hear about any of the craziness? His brother and his dad were in Ireland at the game in Ireland. I don't know if they know this. They have college football games in Ireland now at the beginning of the season for some reason, and I forget who they were playing. And I think maybe it was Michigan or somebody like that. And his dad and his brother ended up in a domestic brawl fight outside the stadium, fighting each other. So you just lost after having like it was I believe they lost that game, and it was over a dumb mistake. And then you have to deal with this in the news that your brother and dad were fighting outside the stadium. It's kind of crazy, and I'm hoping like he kind of like separate himself from some of that craziness and comes into this season with the hopes and the expectations that I had for him last season, because I thought Avery Johnson was going to come through the scene bursting, because he's one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in this conference. He really is. The offense should become more aggressive under Chris Kleiman. Not Chris Kleiman, I'm sorry, Colin Klein. Very similar name, Colin Klein. Because Colin Klein's new head coach, Chris Kleiman is the old one. But the defense must regain its old identity. Kansas State was also one of the cleanest teams in the league, committing only 38.3 penalty yards per game, best in the Big 12. Projections already have them at 8-4, maybe a 9-3 game, 9-3 team. Avery Johnson gives them a real ceiling. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Another year of Avery Johnson, maybe they find that physicality. I'm going to say they're going to be a dark horse of making a run at the possibly the Big 12. To be honest, that's where I kind of have them. I still think they have what it takes. But a more mature quarterback, I think that there's going to be a lot to be had there. What do you think? What are your thoughts on Kansas State?
Well, just to answer your question from earlier, the last wide receiver drafted from Kansas State was Tyler Lockett in 2015.
There you
go. Ben Sinnott was the last pass catcher as a tight end. Went to Washington. I mean, oh boy, they got a 4-star linebacker, 6'4", like skinny linebacker from Stillwater. I really don't. I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about Kansas State other than a certain quarterback.
No, it's perfectly fine. I completely understand. Kansas State, I want to say Kansas State does play in some of the biggest rivalries when it comes to the Big 12. They have been, over the years. And Avery Johnson was, like I said, he was touted to be one of the top quarterbacks in this conference. I want to say he was part of the 2023 recruiting class. He was a 4-star, maybe 5-star recruit, I want to say. But he's a dual threat kind of guy. Will Howard, he wasn't really the dual threat kind of guy, but he could chuck the ball down the field with the best of them. And they've always had receivers, but my thing about Kansas State I always liked was their secondary. I always thought they had a really good secondary. They, how they run the ball, the physicality that they bring. So I'm hoping they can bring back that identity of what we know Kansas State football is all about. So we'll see what happens. Next team, we'll have a couple more to go over. Oklahoma State Cowboys. The Oklahoma State is the biggest boom or bust team in the league. The Cowboys were awful offensively in 2025, averaging only 14.2 points per game. And defensively, they allowed 33.3, the worst scoring defense in the Big 12. Mike Gundy is gone. That's right. New coach Eric Morris arrives from North Texas with quarterback Drew Mestamaker. That's right, Drew Mestamaker. Mestamaker was one of those names that I was surprised that he left North Texas, to be honest. I thought he would either stay there or go to a bigger program. His name was being tossed around, even not even tossed around. Some people have already started looking at him as a possible NFL prospect. I don't know what your thoughts on Drew Mestamaker is, but I think along with these other QBs, it's another big quarterback in this conference. Running back Caleb Hawkins and receiver Wyatt Young are there as well. That gives Oklahoma State instant offensive chemistry, but the defense has to be completely rebuilt. So I'm expecting a big improvement on the offensive side of the ball. But on the defense, they got to completely rebuild, find their front seven. I think the defense is really going to decide if they're even going to make a run at a bowl game or not, to be honest. That's my thoughts at Oklahoma State. What do you think?
I think not only do they need to rebuild that defense, they need to continue to build that offensive line. They damn near got Ollie Gordon killed 2 years ago. Like they took a guy who had 1,800 yards rushing and made him look pedestrian.
Mm.
I don't mind the quarterback, right? Like I don't think he's necessarily like some barn burner, but he is a decent quarterback. Um, yeah, we'll see. Like they got a lot of work. I remember being so disappointed watching because I think they hurt Ollie Gordon's stock in 2024. It just he was such a good running back in 23, and then you could just see that offensive line was just a disaster, and then their defensive line was a disaster, and it just I don't necessarily think it got better last year. So they got a lot of proving to do in the trenches.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. Let's keep it moving. So next up are the TCU Horned Frogs. Texas Christian University remains a dangerous offensive program. The Horned Frogs averaged 30.7 points and 421.5 yards per game. 2025, but I'm sorry, in 2025, but the offense, but this offseason brought major change. Quarterback Josh Hoover, who transferred to Indiana, so Harvard transferred Jaden Craig is expected to compete for a job after throwing for more than 6,000 yards over the last 3 seasons. New offensive coordinator Gordon Sammies, I think is how you say it, is expected to build a stronger rushing identity behind an experienced offensive line. Defensively, TCU allowed 25.3 points per game, good enough to compete, but not dominant. TCU is one of those like teams that they're very well coached. We talked about that a little bit earlier, Steve. A team that they don't do anything super sexy, but they stay competitive by being very well coached. Can they continue to do that? That's my question. They're losing Josh Hoover, which is a big loss, to be honest. That guy, he has a hell of an arm. We talked about him previously. What do you think of the Horned Frogs? I kind of have them as a possible 8-4 team, maybe a 7-5 team. I don't know. How do you feel about them?
I mean, correct me if my memory is wrong. I mean, weren't they just in the national championship not that long ago?
I want to say that was like 3 or 4 years ago. They played Michigan, I believe. I could be wrong about that.
I think it was Michigan. Like the team losing Hoover, who I thought was a very good player, and I mean
No,
they're
they
bringing
lost
in
to
a back.
Georgia, by the way. It was Georgia.
Oh, it's Georgia. Yeah, it was Georgia. You're right. Absolutely. Yes, it was. Um, I think Beck was he the backup at that
It,
point?
it was
It don't matter.
2023. That doesn't matter though. Keep going.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean they have a good team. Like TCU generally has had good teams. They just losing Hoover is gonna hurt. They got a backup quarterback that, or was a backup quarterback. He's got to prove he can be a starter for them. Uh, they had some turnovers this year. They just they got to get disciplined more. Knock out the turnovers, even though they are already a disciplined team. Knock off the turnovers, and hopefully this quarterback is what they need to replace Josh Hoover, and I think they'll be a good football team again. Again, like it's one of those things that when you have a really good coach, which they do, you always got a shot.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Carson Beck was the starter that season, by the way, for 2023. Yep. Definitely agree. Everyone's got a shot. We'll see what happens with the Horned Frogs. They always tend to surprise me. They win the games that I think are tough to win, but I don't see them beating the big time powerhouse teams like a Georgia or an Ohio State, or I don't even see them beating Miami, to be honest. But that's just me. Let's keep it going. Next, do we want to keep best for last, or do we want to go ahead and just go in order as I've been?
We can save the best for last.
Okay. So the next up, University of Central Florida Knights. That's right, the Knights, as they remind me every time I hear the word Knights. UCF is still trying to find its Big 12 identity. The Knights averaged 24.3 points per game in 2025, which was not enough for the pace that they want to play. Defensively, they were better than expected, allowing 23.6 points per game and 335.8 yards. A top half Big 12 profile. Scott Frost hit the portal heavily, bringing in 31 transfers, including former James Madison quarterback Alonzo Barnett III, who led JMU to a college football playoff appearance. If Barnett gives UCF stability, this team could jump quickly. Prediction: 6-6 team. QB upgrade gives them a chance. But I still think 31 players in the transfer portal, you got some chemistry to make there. What do you think?
I think you stole all the stuff that I was going to say. I think Alonzo Barnett's going to be really good for them. Like he's not going to get the credit, but he was really good for James Madison last year. They have some weapons. Like they have a decent offense. They have a decent defense. They could use some more offensive line. So hopefully some of the young kids they brought in end up working out for them. They got a very interesting way in how they use their linebackers and defensive backs and how they kind of flip them around a little bit. But I'd like what UCF might do this year. They might be a little sneaky little brother you didn't see coming.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. My biggest thing I want to say when it comes to UCF, and this goes to their head coach. Scott Frost was the coach that left to go to Nebraska and then came back, right? That's who Scott Frost is, I believe.
I believe so.
Yeah. His biggest mistake was after that 1 year going undefeated, and everybody said, oh, UCF should be in the national championship and they should be in the playoffs. They're undefeated and everything. You remember that season? Yes. I really feel that he should have stayed at UCF. His biggest mistake was jumping to a Nebraska program, which is a much bigger program. I think he needed to stay and learn from that season and build on what he was building. So I hope he learned from that and he can continue to build the UCF Knights, because I do like seeing them being more competitive. The Utah Utes. Utah had the Big 12's best offensive statistically in 2025. They averaged 41.3 points a game and 482.9 yards per game, almost 500 yards. Wow. The defense was also strong, allowing 18.9s per game. The good news, quarterback Devon Dampier and Bird Ficklin. I'll just say it's Bird Ficklin. I'm not sure how to say his first name. Return along with running back Wayshawn Parker and defensive standouts Jonathan Hall and Scooby Davis. I like that name, Scooby Davis. That's definitely a football name for me. The concern, Morgan Scalley replaces Kyle Whittingham, and Utah must replace its entire starting offensive line. That's really scary. They lost everybody on that offensive line. The Utes added transfer receivers Brendan Pagan and Kyrie Scholes, which should help the passing game a lot. A lot of people have them prediction at 9-3 or 10-2. I'm going to say pump the brakes a little bit. I have them more at 8-4, maybe a 9-3 team, to be honest, at the very high. I don't think they can win this league, to be honest. They have to replace that whole offensive line. I know people hate hearing this, but trenches do win championships, and I don't think they have the offensive line yet. Could they develop the offensive line during the season? Very possible. Maybe they do. Maybe we just don't know yet. But I'm going to go ahead and say I still don't have them winning more than 8 games, to be honest, this season, to be honest. That's where I'm at with Utah. What do you think about the Utes?
I think you pointed out the biggest issue that they have. They lost not 1, not 2, but I believe 3 of their offensive linemen, correct?
They lost the whole starting offensive line.
Oh, shit. Yeah. So you got to replace an entire offensive line in one little short little break. Yeah. I'm going to have to see it to believe it. I am.
Yeah. And you lost your head coach that has been there for quite a long time. And, people were saying he was getting ready to sign an extension. Some people were saying he was going to retire, and then he goes to Michigan. Yeah, that's kind of I think you got a lot more to work on there. I do understand you got a lot of returning starters as well as some people that can come in and, go to work right away. My issue is replacing that offensive line and under a new head coach. There's going to be some bumps along the road there right off the get-go. Let's see what happens in year 2. That's when I think Utah is going to make a big push.
Yeah, they do have a decent wide receiver in Brandon Pegnan, who I think is actually pretty solid. So, they have some weapons. It's just they got to get that offensive line under control.
Yeah, they definitely do
that. Oof.
So, West Virginia Mountaineers. West Virginia is still rebuilding under Rich Rodriguez. The Mountaineers averaged 21.8 points per game and allowed 30.8 points per game, which explains the 4-8 season. Rich Rodriguez, I swear, has been either the 2 teams I know him from the most is either West Virginia or Michigan. And at Michigan, he was a complete disaster. The roster is almost brand new with 69 newcomers. So chemistry is the biggest issue. The late season upset of Houston gives the program something to build on, but both sides of the ball need improvement. Offensively, West Virginia needs stability at quarterback and a more explosive run game. Defensively, the Mountaineers must reduce big plays and improve tackling. West Virginia, I want to say, had one of the more veteran rosters the past, I want to say, 2 years ago. So since then, they've kind of been in the water. I don't know if they're not really swimming. They're kind of drowning a little bit. So they had to come up with a whole new roster. We'll see what happens. I don't even have them being bowl eligible. I'm going to go ahead and say they're more of a 5-7 team for me, maybe even a 4-8. That's kind of that's kind of where I'm at. They have the possibility to be bowl eligible if they build on what they did last year. We'll see. I just think almost 70 newcomers. That's a lot of newcomers to have to come in with and build chemistry right away. I just don't see it happening. Go ahead, Steve.
They still got that Nico kid, right, at quarterback.
At quarterback? Oh, I don't know. Let me take a look. That is a good question.
I think is how you say his name. I mean, they're a rebuilding team. I don't know what else there is to say. They have offensive line full of physical players, but they still just get bullied around. I don't know.
Well, they're saying that there's going to be a quarterback competition. There's two guys that they have now, Michael Hawkins Jr. and sophomore Scotty Fox Jr.
Okay.
So it doesn't look like that guy is still there. Michael Hawkins Jr. was a highly touted transfer from Oklahoma. Hawkins has stood out during spring practices with his dual threat ability, making him a major contender for the starting job. Scotty Fox is now entering his sophomore season. Fox gained valuable experience as a true freshman in 2025, taking over midseason after injuries on the depth chart. His familiarity with Rodriguez's system gives him a strong edge in the competition. Now, I think the guy you're talking about is Nico Mauricio, I think is how you say it, or Mauricio. He's a redshirt junior who brings veteran depth and starting experience, it says. But it looks like everyone thinks it's going to be between Hawkins and Scotty Fox. That's what
he went to Northwestern.
Oh, did he? The guy you're talking about?
Yeah. Nico? Yeah, he went to Northwestern.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
But I mean, again, it's at the end of the day, it's a rebuilding team. I don't expect much out of them. Like I said, they do have some physical guys on the offensive line, but they're just not working together yet. They're still trying to figure out what they want to do. The defensive line still needs building. I just don't know. I don't think they win more than 3 games, so I'm kind of in line with you on the not even being able to get the bowl eligibility.
Yeah, I definitely definitely agree with you. 1 second there. Sorry about that. I had to respond to someone. So let's talk about the best team, in my opinion, when it comes to the Big 12. That is the Texas Tech Raiders, home of the former Tech and legendary and soon-to-be Hall of Fame college football Hall of Fame head coach Mike Leach. If you guys don't know, Mike Leach brought the air raid offense there. He transformed Texas Tech football. That whole system transformed football with the air raid offense and everything, and what we know today of it and everything, and how teams still today use that offense in some of the programs out there today. So shout out to him. But he's now officially on the 2027 Hall of Fame ballot, just so you know. So I wanted to bring that up real quick.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought you were about to say Zach Thomas.
No,
you said Hall of Famer. I was like, oh, here we go.
Hall of Fame head coach is who I'm talking about. And if you didn't know, Leach, who revolutionized the sport with his iconic air raid offense, as I mentioned before, became eligible for the National Football Foundation, adjusted the career winning percentage requirement to 0.595, which is, we'll just say 60%. He finished his 21-year career with a 60% winning percentage and 158 victories across his stops at Texas Tech, even Washington State and Mississippi State. He was named to the ballot alongside 3 other former Texas Tech head coaches, Pete Crothan, Jim Carlin, and Tommy Tuberville. The class of inductees will officially announce in early 2027, just so you know that. But let's talk about Texas Tech football and the state of it today. Texas Tech is the Big 12 favorite. I'm just going to point it out. In 2025, the Red Raiders averaged 39.4 points per game, over 461.4 yards per game, while fielding the best defense in the conference by a wide margin, allowing 11.8 points allowed per game and only 258.3 yards allowed per game. The concern is attrition, right? Texas Tech had 6 defenders drafted, including Rodriguez, who I cannot wait to see. He had 6 defenders drafted, including 4 in the first 3 rounds, but it attacked the portal hard and landed a transfer portal class rated number 6 nationally by 24/7 Sports. Quarterback Brendan Sorsby, who was expected to replace Brian Morton, but his eligibility status is uncertain, making backup Will Hammond critical. The prediction early on is an 11-1, still the best roster, but QB uncertainty matters. But people are saying maybe they're more of a 10-2 team. I don't know. I think the Big 12 in some teams have gotten better, right? We talked about, some of the other teams, BYU, I think they've gotten better. I think that some of the, you look at some of the other rosters out there, I think the defenses have gotten better. The offenses have gotten better. It's going to be really come down to that quarterback position. Can Will Hammond really hold down the position, really make the plays that are needed? That's going to be the biggest question. I do think on paper, they have one of the best rosters, but can they put it together for 2026 or the 2026-2027 season? It's going to be a real big question mark. What do you think, Steve? What do you think about the Red Raiders?
Well, you brought up 6 defenders. They had 9 players drafted from their team overall.
But we're talking about the first 3 rounds. It was 6. First 3 rounds.
Oh, okay. Well, they had 9 players overall drafted, including the quarterback that led them to the playoffs last year. The Brian Morton, I can't remember how to say his name. But yeah, they lost a lot of talent, including, hopefully future Hall of Famer, middle linebacker Jacob Rodriguez, who was a core, and I mean absolute core piece of that defense. So they're going to have to figure out how to replace his production. They have lost Romello Height also went to the draft. Like their pass rush, they're going to have to find answers at their pass rush at quarterback. They're going to have to find some answers at wide receiver. They need the middle linebackers to step up. Like they have a lot to figure out. They got a quarterback competition between Mitch Griffiths, Will Hammond, and Lloyd Jones III. But Hammond, I believe, is still coming off of was it an ACL? It was something. I think he had it was a knee or shoulder. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll have to look that up. But he's coming off a serious injury, so they're gonna have to figure some stuff out. What's crazy is I believe the betting odds is 11.5 wins for them.
Yeah, it was about 11.5.
Despite all that turnover, I don't know how you have, I think didn't the 9 draft picks set like a draft record for the most players ever taken from a single school?
Yeah, definitely. I want to say that I don't know if it broke a record. I want to say Ohio State broke one of their records, but I don't know about Texas Tech. I'll have to look that up. But one thing that was interesting to me is that they have a lot of turnover, but 2026 recruiting class does have some guys, especially on the offensive line. They have a guy that I'm really kind of excited about to see what he does. Felix Ojo out of Mansfield Lake Ridge in Mansfield, Texas. He was one of the highest rated offensive linemen. He's a 5-star recruit, 6'6", 274 pounds. I want to say that's kind of light for offensive lineman or offensive tackle, but I think he can grow into the position, right? Gain a little bit more pounds. I think he could grow into it. I think they have guys that can come in and start playing some good earned minutes right away when it comes to in certain snaps. They're their transfer portal, they really, bought into that. They've brought in quite a few transfers this past off season. Like you saw quite a few people. Brandon Sorsby is the one that hurts. I wonder if that 11 and a half wins was with Brandon Sorsby. If with Brandon Sorsby not there, what is the expectation now from Vegas? That's the biggest question.
Absolutely. I mean, they lost their number 1 and number 2 wide receiver, if you think about it too. Reggie Virgil was their leading receiver at 57 receptions. He's gone. Caleb Douglas was their second leading receiver of the wide receivers. He's gone. Like they have to figure out weapons, defense, quarterback. Like they have a lot of proving to do. I think Sorsby was a part of that, but like, man, that sucks. I do kind of hope he gets his eligibility back somehow, but I think he'll end up entering that supplemental draft and just come into the NFL on somebody's roster somehow.
Definitely. Wait. Color said that Skylar Thompson is now a Raven. Is that true? I didn't know that. He's backing up Lamar. Holy crap. I didn't know that. Shout out to you, Color. But yeah, definitely. Texas Tech, I think it's going to come down to that quarterback position. I think I'm going to go ahead and say it. I still think it's between Texas Tech and BYU. Those are the two teams to beat. I'm hoping, I have a feeling Kansas State might be that third team there. I could see them finishing top 4. That's my hope at least. But we will see. What do you think? What are your overall thoughts when it comes to the Big 12? And I'll just kind of give you my projection. This is what I project how it to go. I have, and let me just go to it. Here it is. The true contenders to me are probably going to be Texas Tech, BYU, Houston, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think it's going to be between Utah and Kansas State. That's what I think. There's going to be a little competition there, right? But for the true contenders for the title, I'm going to say it's more Texas Tech, BYU, and Houston than it is Utah. Even though Utah is there, having to replace virtually your whole offensive line, that's really hard to come from. I don't really know how you're going to do that. The dangerous challengers, you have teams like Arizona, Kansas State, TCU, Arizona State. I kind of see like those teams being a kind of a challenge for the title as well. Iowa State and Colorado. I apologize, Mystic, because you're not here, but I think Iowa State and Colorado are going to finish at the bottom. Colorado is definitely going to be at the bottom, I think. Everybody else is going to be fighting just for a bowl game. The reality for me, I got Texas Tech winning the whole thing. And the runner-up, I want to say, is probably going to be BYU again. That's what I think is going to happen. What do you think? What are your projections?
It's so hard. Like I don't know if I can put Texas Tech as my favorite to win. If Brendan Sorsby starts, they're winning that conference. If he somehow they give him his eligibility and he plays, that 100%. If he doesn't, I think Arizona State and I think UCF actually have a real chance to make some noise this season. I do like what UCF has done a lot. I think BYU could make some noise. It just depends on what they brought in, making up for where they were in shambles a little bit last year. So if Sorsby starts, Texas Tech will make another playoff run, and it might even be deep. If he doesn't, I like Arizona State, I like BYU, and I like UCF. Those three battling out for that top spot.
UCF, really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. All right. UCF is your surprise team. For me, my surprise team is going to be Kansas State. I think Kansas State's going to outperform what people project them to do.
The thing about UCF is, though, like they've been kind of lingering right there. If you really like pay attention, they were lingering right there, and I think they could take that step.
Yep, I definitely understand that. Um, let me look at something real quick. I want to see how close were they right there, as you said. Uh, yeah, Iowa State was there for a while too. Um, very interesting. Was UCF is new to this conference too? No, they're here. They're here. I saw. I found them.
They are newer. They're
They're
newer.
newer, but I don't know. I think for me, I think Kansas State's going to make a push forward. Iowa is going to drop down because of the fact that they have just too much attrition that they have to rebuild back from. Um, the question is going to be Arizona and Arizona State. Those teams are really going to battle it out. So we'll see. We'll definitely see what happens. I'm excited for Big 12 football. But that being said, everybody hit the like button. Let's get into the bottom line. We just got done breaking down the Big 12, right? The Big 12 is exciting, fast-paced offense. If you're an air raid kind of guy, West Coast offense galore with the passing, the ball where it's not so much run first, it's who can get the ball down the field as quickly as possible. Check out the Big 12. That's how it's designed. The defenses they are good. Don't get me wrong. Texas Tech, I think, has one of the most balanced defense out of all these teams. Their defense was by far superior compared to any other team the past season. But these defenses are really built just to slow the offense down. It's about outscoring. That's why you see a lot of big time name quarterbacks on these teams in the Big 12. Everybody from DJ Lackway, Avery Johnson. We talked about Sam Levitt being that was here at one point. I believe Sam Levitt went to LSU, right? Is where he went.
I believe so.
I believe so. Yep. So it's going to be really interesting what happens with the Big 12. I'm excited for some football already. What are your thoughts? What's your overall thoughts about the Big 12 and how it's built? Do you agree with the assumption there's not a clear favorite, that there's a mix of teams that could be in contention?
I like I kind of said, if Brendan Sorsby plays, there's a clear favorite. If he doesn't play, I think there's a very good mix of teams that are around the same power and strength that it could get real interesting at the end of the college season.
Yeah, it's going to definitely be very, very interesting. Everybody hit the like button. As I mentioned before, there is going to be exclusive content that we put out on the 4th and 10U channel exclusively, right? It's not going to be a 2 or 3 hour tour like a Giggle Island show or something where we go around for 4 hours or some round for 4 hours. But it's going to be more of maybe a 30-minute to 45-minute episode where we break down a specific school program, maybe some news that's going on. Each episode is going to be different, and exclusively you can find it on the at 4th and 10U channel. First up, for you Hurricane fans, we're going to break down the Hurricanes. I think they're going to have an exciting off season. They have a quarterback competition that I think is going to set everything and set the tone for the season. Will they be able to match what they did in 2025? That's going to be the biggest question mark. We're going to break it down. Me and Steve are going to give you everyone our thoughts. Check that out. That'll be the first episode you can catch on at 4th and 10U. Again, at 4th and 10U. Follow us on YouTube. You will not be able to see it on the TFTG side, just so you guys know that. Any final thoughts for everyone at home? I know this was a shorter episode. We finished less than 2 hours. Holy crap.
Yeah. No, I mean just remember, even though we're talking about a Power 5 conference right now, really look into all these conferences. This is something I'm going to really enjoy over the next couple months while we, gear up for August. These littler conferences, like we did last week with the MAC, like I'm sure we're going to look into, some of the other smaller ones. The scales in which these teams play is very interesting, and it almost makes me at some point wish there was a little bit more shakeup to really get these teams blended with some of the other I don't want to say lower end, but they are kind of the lower end conferences, and you can see the size and scale difference when you get to like the Big 12s and Big 10s. And it's just a very interesting dichotomy between the all of them.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. One thing I like to really look at when it comes to the lower conferences, like we talked about the MAC in the previous episode, for example, right? I like to see the competition that those smaller schools put out because it means something for them. It's not just it's not just something nationally, but locally to them, it means a lot more. Like, I'll give you an example. We talked about the MAC in the last episode. Toledo versus Bowling Green is a huge rivalry. That's one of the games that I went to at University of Toledo, where you half the field, or I'm sorry, half the stadium is wearing brown and orange, and the other is, maize and blue, or gold in blue, for example, right? Or the yellow and blue, I think it was. That's generally one of the biggest rivalry games. Back when Marshall, the team Marshall, was part of the MAC, those were the Toledo versus Marshall games were banger games, bro. I remember a game, Toledo was getting their ass kicked, and I ended up leaving the stadium early, and we went and partied at one of my buddy's dorm rooms. We were having a party, the whole floor was, and we were drinking and everything, and all of a sudden, everybody's running in. We won. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? We won. And we were getting our ass kicked. And it was like 35-7 or something stupid, right? And they're like, yeah, we came back. We beat Marshall's ass in the fourth quarter. Holy crap. And ESPN made the game like an instant classic. And the whole town, the whole local area, University of Toledo, Toledo itself, the outer area, the whole talk was that game for like a whole week or two, right? That's all they would talk about. That's what these lower conferences give you. They give you that admiration from the fan base and what it means to them. The competitiveness is not just between the programs and the players. The fans get into it that much more. When you look at these smaller schools and stuff, they shut the cities down. Like, I remember, like, in Ohio, the Waterville or White House, Ohio, where I went to high school, because both cities are intertwined, and then the high school is right in between. That whole area is shut down when it comes to football. They love football there, and that's something I like about these smaller schools. They made the Marshall movie not just because of the players and the tragedy of what happened to the University of Marshall, but why it was important to that local area and the fan base and the fans of University of Marshall, right? That's why the movie was truly made, because it meant something to them. They were part of the story just as much as what happened to the team and the players that lost their lives and everything. So that's kind of why I like talking about these smaller schools. But we'll be talking about, the Mountain West soon. We'll talk about the ACC soon. We'll be talking about maybe some HBCU schools. We'll talk about them. We'll be breaking down, every conference. The AAC, which I know Steve wants to bite on as quickly as he can, being a South Florida fan. Yeah, I can't wait. Everybody hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, turn on the notification bell. Remember, exclusive content going to be on at 4th and 10U starting, I'm going to say Friday. You'll see that come out. You can only get it there, nowhere else. It's not going to be a live episode, so it's going to be just exclusive content on that side. We'll still do our lives here on Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't be late, or be square, whatever the saying is. But until then, we'll see you next time. Everyone have a good night.